All right, so real quick, the Russiagate thing is back in the news. And just I want to remind people a couple things, remind myself, basically. Danchenko was one of the sources. He was listed. I don't know if he was listed by CrowdStrike or where he was listed, but he was the pee tape. Remember the idea that Trump had let a whore pee on him? And this went around, and then it was kind of like somebody pressed on it, and he figured out that that was all hearsay. It was all complete hearsay, fabrication, basically drunken bar talk. This guy, Danchenko. But that was allowed to be repeated. The impression was just thrown out there. Late night jokes, the stuff, nothing really substantiated, nothing ever substantiated about the P tape story ever came out. But it was an impression that was in the people's minds. It still is in their minds. A lot of them still think that happened. Even though it's been on, Danchenko's already come out and said, it was just drunken bar talk. I really don't know anything about that. Another thing that happened was Bill Binney. Got to remember the name of Bill Binney. Bill Binney, in context of this Russiagate, so it was this idea, and this is the idea that's kind of sticking now. The idea that's kind of coming back around was that somehow these emails were hacked by Russians, by maybe a couple of Bulgarians in some cafe or some Russians or something, that they hacked these emails. And that they were more sophisticated than Cambridge Analytica or anybody else. He's super sophisticated, but with no budget. Hacked the Clinton emails, the Podesta emails, and released them in this hack. Okay. Then people got really busy and figured out that no, somebody had got access to the computer with a thumb drive. And that actually in the time that they said that the hack happened, there wasn't enough time to transfer that much data. But it was enough time, someone figured out, to get it onto a thumb drive, right? Bill Binney figured all this out. And so it was a leak, not a hack. That went around, that actually became a headline, leak, not a hack. And it was disproven that there was no hack, Russia didn't do that. Somebody within the Democratic Party, maybe Seth Rich. Remember him? You're not allowed to say his name or you're a conspiracy nut. He's a guy who was murdered. But anyway, Seth Rich or somebody, some leaker, quote unquote, from within the Democratic Party itself, filled up a hard drive and gave that to Julian Assange and the media and stuff. That was the leak, not a hack. Bill Binney proved it. Bill Binney is an NSA expert. Okay, he's also, before that, he proved that when they had said that, something about the NSA and how they couldn't uncrypt, or they had all this information, they're bulk gathering all this data, and Edward Snowden showed us that they're bulk gathering American data, but they couldn't really do much with it, they said. And Bill Binney had figured out a way to solve it, to kind of filter and sort out this data. And he did it as just a team member paid for working for the NSA. The NSA demonstrated they didn't want his answer. This is something that's separate from Russiagate. But they wanted SAIC. They wanted this private security firm called SAIC, S-A-I-C. Strategic Applications Incorporated Company. Some name you're never supposed to be able to remember, SAIC. They're a top defense contractor you never hear of. Anyway, they got the contract to sort out the data, and they did a shitty job. And Bill Binney was fired. Or not fired, but he was alienated from doing that. And that became sort of the start of his problem